Samuel did not know that giving water to the dying red-skinned woman would bind an entire warrior civilization to his service. He just knew she was thirsty, and he could help. As Samuel Okonkwo made his way through the dense forest near his clinic, deep in thought about his latest patient's condition, back at the small medical hut, a faint metallic glint caught his eye. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy, casting shadows around an unusual object partially hidden by overgrown vines and moss-covered rocks. As he approached, curiosity, the overpowering caution, Samuel recognized it as something unmistakably out of place, the wreckage of what appeared to be some kind of spacecraft. He moved closer, wary but not quite sure why he felt uneasy. The air was heavy with an unfamiliar scent, metallic yet sharp, tinged oddly with a touch of ozone and distant smoke. As he stepped over debris strewn around the crash site, a mix of odd materials that didn't belong to this planet, his trained eyes quickly scanned for signs of life. In one corner near a large boulder, Samuel spotted movement, a flash of crimson skin as something stirred weakly in what seemed like an open airlock. The sight sent adrenaline coursing through him, and he hurried towards the wounded figure lying motionless on the cold metal surface. She was covered with intricate markings, unlike any human tattoo or tribal mark. Her features were sharp yet delicate, but now marred by deep cuts and a multitude of bruises. "Are you hurt?" Samuel asked softly as he crouched beside her, placing his hand gently over hers to take her pulse. He winced when she jerked violently at the contact, eyes snapping open in pain and confusion, a startling pair of golden irises that seemed almost luminescent against her dark skin. "Who are you?" The woman's voice was hoarse but clear, with a tone of deep command. Despite how obviously weakened by dehydration and injuries she appeared to be. She tried to sit up, but immediately collapsed back onto the cold metal floor when dizziness overwhelmed her. Dr. Okonkwo," Samuel replied firmly yet soothingly. "You are safe now." With gentle care, he helped ease her into a more comfortable position against one of the larger pieces of debris still partially intact from whatever had crashed here. Her eyes flickered between him and their surroundings warily before settling back on his face. "My name is Veyra Keth'Shaan," she stated with an air of authority that almost belied her current vulnerability. "I am a commander in the HFY, but I fear my forces may not find me soon enough to make much difference now." Samuel's heart clenched at this admission and the evident despair behind it. He had seen similar hopelessness countless times among patients on the brink of death or loss due to disease before. His medical training kicked in automatically. "Please don't worry about that," he reassured her, reaching into his bag for a clean cloth and water bottle. "We'll take care of you here." As he wiped blood away from around a particularly deep wound on one arm, she visibly relaxed beneath his careful ministrations, yet, when their eyes met again, there was an unmistakable weariness mixed with something else, perhaps surprise at such simple human kindness. "What is your kind called?" Veyra asked after a moment of silence had passed between them. "Human," Samuel answered simply, "and I am here to help you because that's what doctors do." She blinked rapidly, as if trying to process this information against everything she thought she knew about her own kind and others in the universe. Incredulity colored her next words. "Then why are you helping me? My people have been at war with yours for decades." "I am not your enemy," Samuel said firmly. "You may be injured, but here you are still just another soul who needs help." For a long moment, Veyra stared up at him in utter disbelief. Finally, understanding dawned on her face. "I do not understand this, but thank you." The words were soft and sincere. With renewed determination, Samuel continued his efforts to stabilize the commander's condition while keeping an eye out for any other injuries that might require immediate attention before she lost consciousness again. Once he was certain there wasn't much more he could safely manage without proper equipment back at his clinic, he picked Veyra up with surprising ease considering her size, and carried her through the forest towards safety. Back in Samuel's modest clinic, makeshift but well organized, he laid Veyra down on a clean cot. She remained quiet as he administered basic medical treatment to keep her stable overnight, while waiting for any of his alien patients' own people or perhaps other experts to arrive and take over from there if necessary. Yet even now, alone with the unconscious commander under dim lantern light after dusk had fallen, Samuel couldn't shake off a nagging feeling that helping this particular woman was only the beginning of something much bigger than he could ever have anticipated. He wondered briefly about her species' strange customs regarding such acts of kindness and survival debts, but before long his thoughts were once again focused solely on saving another life in front of him. Little did Samuel know, his actions would soon set off a chain reaction across galaxies far beyond what any human had imagined possible. Morning dawned slowly over the clinic, casting pale light into its humble rooms. The first stirrings of activity outside hinted at approaching daybreak as birds chirped and insects buzzed about their daily tasks. Inside, though, Samuel found himself standing watch beside Veyra Keth'Shaan's cot once more, this time not just ensuring her continued survival, but also preparing mentally for whatever consequences might arise from his good deed. Just then, an unexpected noise startled him back into alertness, heavy footsteps thudding urgently through the underbrush outside. Within moments, a contingent of armed warriors burst forth from surrounding foliage, their leader stepping forward with unmistakable authority and purpose in her bearing, even though she shared many physical traits similar to Veyra herself. Commander Keth'Shaan's sharp gaze swept over Samuel before settling squarely on him. "We have come for our commander," she declared firmly, every word imbued with the weight of law and obligation. Samuel nodded calmly despite his inner turmoil. I understand," he said softly yet confidently. "Please make yourselves comfortable while I inform Veyra that help has arrived." With those words hanging in the air between them like an unspoken agreement binding two worlds together, Samuel turned away to retrieve a blanket and pillows before returning quietly beside Commander Keth'Shaan's side, gently shaking her awake now that dawn had truly broken and it was clear visitors awaited outside. Veyra stirred groggily from semi-consciousness. "What?" she murmured as awareness returned fully within those striking golden eyes meeting his. "It is all right," Samuel reassured gently. "Again, your people have arrived to take you home." A look of stark realization flashed across her face, then understanding mingling with gratitude, and a touch of awe at the unexpected turn events had taken since she had nearly perished alone on this foreign world days earlier. In response, Veyra's expression softened considerably, as if finally grasping just how deeply indebted not only to him, but now also potentially every single one of her own kind, she might owe some measure of repayment for his compassion. Before either could say more, however, Keth'Shaan strode confidently into the clinic itself, this time obviously having overheard enough discussion from outside already. She approached closely, until standing mere feet away, where Veyra lay still recovering fully now thanks largely to Samuel's tireless care earlier on despite odds stacked against both humans and aliens alike. "Commander," she greeted formally, then, bowing slightly while extending hand respectfully towards him, "Nonetheless, from all of us in your clan, thank you." For a moment there was only silence between them, Then slowly but surely something shifted within Samuel's own core essence too, as acceptance blossomed alongside awareness that saving one life truly might ripple outwards into much broader implications than ever before thought possible. Accepting this new reality with grace and humility, though, he simply smiled warmly back at Commander Veyra. "You are welcome." And so began an extraordinary journey neither man nor alien could have foreseen when their paths first collided under such strange circumstances. Chapter 2. The dim light of dawn filtered through the small clinic windows, casting a warm glow over Samuel Okonkwo as he tended to Commander Veyra Keth'Shaan's wounds. She was lying on one of his cots, her crimson skin contrasting starkly against the white sheets. Her golden eyes opened slowly, and she blinked several times before meeting Samuel's concerned gaze. "You gave me water when I was dying," Veyra said softly, her voice still rough from disuse, but clear with an undercurrent of awe. "In my culture, this creates an eternal life debt." Samuel nodded gently, his hands steady as he adjusted the bandages around her wound. I understand," he replied calmly. Veyra's sharp eyes narrowed slightly in confusion. She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him better. "My clan will find you," she continued, almost hesitantly. Samuel looked back into those golden orbs with a mixture of curiosity and kindness that seemed foreign to Veyra's experience. "I do not need any debt repaid," he said simply. Veyra stared at him like he was insane, her confusion evident in the furrowed lines between her eyebrows. "How can you say such a thing?" she asked, voice tingling with disbelief and perhaps a touch of awe at his inscrutable humanity. "Because I am a doctor," Samuel replied softly but firmly. "This is what I do." Veyra's lips parted slightly as if to ask more questions, but before she could speak again, there was an unexpected noise, heavy footsteps thudding urgently through the underbrush outside. The sound grew louder and closer by the second. Within moments, a contingent of armed warriors burst forth from surrounding foliage, their leader stepping forward with unmistakable authority and purpose in her bearing despite sharing many physical traits similar to Veyra herself. Commander Veyra's sharp gaze swept over Samuel before settling squarely on him. She was tall like Veyra, but had lighter crimson skin, fewer scars, suggesting a higher rank or perhaps different clan traditions. Her voice carried through the small space with an unambiguous command. "We have come for our commander," she declared firmly, every word imbued with the weight of law and obligation. Samuel nodded calmly despite his inner turmoil. "I understand," he said softly yet confidently. "Please make yourselves comfortable while I inform Veyra that help has arrived." With those words hanging in the air between them like an unspoken agreement binding two worlds together, Samuel turned away to retrieve a blanket and pillows before returning quietly beside Commander Keth'Shaan's side, gently shaking her awake now that dawn had truly broken and it was clear visitors awaited outside. Veyra stirred groggily from semi-consciousness. "What?" she murmured as awareness returned fully within those striking golden eyes meeting his. "It is all right," Samuel reassured gently. "Again, your people have arrived to take you home." A look of stark realization flashed across her face, then understanding mingling with gratitude, and a touch of awe at the unexpected turn events had taken since she had nearly perished alone on this foreign world days earlier. In response, Veyra's expression softened considerably, as if finally grasping just how deeply indebted not only to him, but now also potentially every single one of her own kind, she might owe some measure of repayment for his compassion. Before either could say more, however, Veyra strode confidently into the clinic itself, this time obviously having overheard enough discussion from outside already. She approached closely, until standing mere feet away, where Veyra lay still recovering fully now thanks largely to Samuel's tireless care earlier on despite odds stacked against both humans and aliens alike. "Commander," she greeted formally, then, bowing slightly while extending hand respectfully towards him. "Nonetheless, from all of us in your clan, thank you." For a moment there was only silence between them. Then slowly but surely something shifted within Samuel's own core essence too, as acceptance blossomed alongside awareness that saving one life truly might ripple outwards into much broader implications than ever before thought possible. Accepting this new reality with grace and humility, though, he simply smiled warmly back at Commander Taller. "You are welcome." And so began an extraordinary journey neither man nor alien could have foreseen when their paths first collided under such strange circumstances. The clinic's small space seemed to compress around them as the gravity of what had transpired settled in. The armed warriors, including those who stood guard outside and now inside the building, watched Samuel with a mix of respect and wariness. Commander Veyra sat up slowly, her eyes flitting between Taller and Samuel before settling on him once more. She seemed to take another moment to process all that had happened at her near death, his selfless act, their arrival, and finally nodded decisively. "I am ready," she said firmly. Taller's expression softened slightly as she looked at Veyra with undisguised pride and relief. "We will escort you back," she declared, turning her attention to the warriors outside who immediately fell into formation. She then turned back to Samuel, bowing again, but more deeply this time. "May your kindness be blessed." Samuel returned the gesture humbly, his hand moving in a slight wave of farewell as he watched them prepare for departure. As they packed up their supplies and began assisting Veyra out of bed and onto her their movements, stiff from lack of use, but still strong, found himself stepping back to give them space. He didn't feel the need or right to interfere further, though a part of him was torn by leaving such an extraordinary being behind. "Safe journey," he called softly as they made their way out into the early morning light with Veyra between Taller and another warrior who walked on either side, protecting her from any unseen dangers. The contingent moved swiftly through the jungle, each member disciplined and focused in contrast to Samuel's more relaxed demeanor. Standing there alone once again after what felt like a brief yet transformative encounter, he found himself smiling softly as he returned inside his clinic, allowing the full weight of what had transpired to settle within him for now. For Dr. Okonkwo, this was simply another day, but beneath that simple veneer lay the knowledge that sometimes one small act can touch ripples across universes. And thus concluded Chapter 2, The Debt, with Samuel left reflecting on a morning where an interstellar connection had been forged through compassion and duty. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a gentle glow across Samuel Okonkwo's small clinic in the remote village nestled deep within Africa's lush jungle. As he stirred from his sleep, the doctor felt an unusual calm settling upon him, a sense that today would bring both challenges and unexpected opportunities. Little did he know how true this intuition would prove to be. As he stepped out of his hut, a chill morning breeze swept across the village with whispers of early dawn's awakening. But it was not nature's quietude Samuel noticed first, rather something far more immediate and alarming caught his eye. 50 Keth'Shaan warrior women, tall figures with sharp golden eyes and deep crimson skin, were kneeling in perfect formation around his clinic. They faced outward toward the village perimeter, their weapons ready, creating a formidable barrier. Samuel's heart raced as he approached Veyra, who stood at his door. The air between them hummed with tension, yet also an unspoken respect born of shared survival and gratitude. She was now bandaged, but clearly recovering rapidly from her wounds. Her deep crimson skin glowed subtly in the early morning light. "Good morning," Samuel greeted cautiously, trying to gauge Veyra's demeanor amidst this sudden spectacle outside his clinic walls. Veyra met his eyes firmly, her expression unwavering. "You were right to expect us, Doctor Okonkwo." Her voice was low and serious, carrying the weight of ancient traditions and duties. "Commander," he replied softly, nodding in acknowledgement before glancing over at the surrounding warriors. Each one appeared formidable yet disciplined, their armor gleaming slightly from the morning dew that clung to it after a recent rain shower. "What's happening?" Veyra's eyes narrowed momentarily as she surveyed her surroundings once more, her gaze lingering on Samuel for an extra moment before returning outward to assess potential threats or dangers lurking beyond what was visible. "We are here to protect you," Veyra declared, stepping slightly aside so he could see the full extent of their defensive formation. "You saved our commander, and by doing so created a life debt that cannot be undone." Samuel blinked several times in rapid succession as comprehension began to dawn upon him, along with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "Protect me?" he asked incredulously, looking back at Veyra, then out again towards the silent figures readying themselves for battle. "From what?" Veyra did not hesitate. "Until this debt is paid, and it will never truly be fully repaid. Your life becomes more valuable than all of ours combined." Samuel's mind whirred as he absorbed these words, feeling a mixture of awe and confusion swirling within him. He stepped back into his clinic momentarily to gather some papers scattered on the table from recent medical notes before turning around one last time towards Veyra. "I don't know how much good it'll be," Samuel admitted softly, but honestly. "This is going to take some explaining." Veyra's sharp golden eyes softened just slightly in understanding, though it didn't diminish her resolve or sense of duty. She looked over at the warriors who had come with her and signaled for one particular warrior woman to approach closer. "Commander Elna," she addressed formally yet directly, gesturing towards Samuel again. "I will introduce you properly soon enough, but today we must be prepared to explain this unusual situation clearly." The commander nodded firmly in return before turning back briefly toward the clinic entrance. There was no mistaking her intent as she moved with purpose. "Dr. Okonkwo," Veyra said resolutely, stepping closer now so that they were face to face once more. "You did what any healer would do without hesitation. Now it is our turn to ensure your safety." Samuel's breath hitched slightly at her words, a reminder of the profound connections forged through acts of kindness and duty in ways he had never before considered possible. "Thank you," Samuel found himself saying quietly, but with genuine heartfelt gratitude. "This will be interesting." Veyra offered him a rare small nod, almost acknowledging that she understood just how foreign this scenario must seem to someone like Dr. Okonkwo, who lived by different codes entirely, yet shared similar core values of compassion and duty. As they spoke briefly inside the clinic about plans moving forward, how best to address local concerns while ensuring everyone's safety, rest of Veyra's contingent remained vigilant outside, watching over their charge with unwavering focus. The sheer number of them was enough to make any potential threat think twice before approaching too closely. Even Samuel felt a sense of reassurance that he had no he expected. "All right," Samuel finally sighed deeply as they stepped back outside together once more, Veyra walking beside him now rather than ahead or behind. "Let's go talk with the village council." He looked over at the visibly The anxious villagers gathered nearby and could see their confusion mirrored in everyone else's expressions. It was clear that this sudden influx of armed alien warriors had unsettled them greatly, yet there were also curious glances thrown his way as well, wondering what exactly transpired during Veyra's stay. Veyra turned to face him directly once more before they approached the gathered villagers together. "You are welcome," she reiterated formally, but with genuine warmth this time. "We will keep you safe." Samuel nodded solemnly in response, feeling an odd mix of relief and anxiety about what was yet to come as he led Veyra towards where the village elders waited for explanations. The walk back toward the council meeting place felt longer than it should have. Both Samuel and Veyra moved with deliberate care amidst their escorting warriors. The path wound through familiar terrain, now charged with an electric undercurrent of anticipation and, perhaps, a little fear amongst those who witnessed this unusual gathering. Arriving finally at the designated clearing where local leaders waited expectantly, Samuel paused briefly before stepping forward to address them. "First, good morning, everyone," he began calmly despite his racing thoughts beneath the surface. "There's something rather unusual that needs explaining." The villagers murmured amongst themselves as they took in Veyra and her warriors, some visibly uncomfortable, while others stared openly with wide eyes. "This is Commander Veyra Keth'Shaan," Samuel continued formally, after clearing his throat, gesturing respectfully towards the towering alien woman standing beside him. "She was injured here recently, but has recovered thanks to our care." There were gasps and murmurs of surprise amongst those listening. Even in such remote regions, news travels fast about unusual occurrences like this one. "Commander Veyra," Samuel addressed formally once more as he stepped back slightly, "these are the village elders. We should introduce each other properly now while explaining what's happened." Veyra bowed deeply before the assembled villagers, a gesture both respectful and powerful in its simplicity, and then spoke clearly but concisely about her people, their mission here on Earth, as much as she felt comfortable revealing, and most importantly, Dr. Okonkwo saved my life, Veyra concluded emphatically. "Our debt is now yours to hold." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by whispers among the villagers. Few could quite process such an extraordinary declaration in their lifetimes. "I understand this will take time to comprehend fully," Samuel added gently, addressing both elders and warriors alike, "but we need your help understanding how best to proceed while ensuring everyone's safety." Veyra nodded sharply but respectfully toward him, then turned her gaze back outward towards the village perimeter, where her contingent stood vigilant guard. "We are ready for whatever challenges come next," she declared firmly, yet with a hint of vulnerability in her stance now. Samuel looked around at all those gathered and saw both wariness and curiosity reflected within their expressions. It was clear this would be far from an easy path ahead, but perhaps also one fraught with unexpected opportunities too. "I'll do my best to explain everything clearly," he promised softly yet definitively, "and together we will find a way forward." As they began discussing plans moving forward amidst growing tension and questions still unanswered, Samuel felt himself becoming more accustomed each passing moment to this new reality unfolding around him. It was strange indeed, but also oddly comforting, knowing that others now stood ready to protect not just his life, but perhaps even the values he held dear. "This is going to be hard to explain to the village council," Samuel sighed softly, yet with a hint of determination as well, glancing over at Veyra, who nodded back silently in agreement. "But we'll figure it out." And thus began their journey together into uncharted territory, where compassion, bridged vast interstellar divides and created bonds stronger than any weapon or armor could ever hope to forge. End of Chapter 3. The arrival. With this chapter, the story continues its exploration of unexpected alliances and profound acts of kindness. As Samuel faces his new reality, surrounded by Keth'Shaan warriors dedicated to protecting him, both he and Commander Veyra must navigate a complex web of cultural differences while forging ahead towards understanding and mutual respect. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the small village, but it was not enough to dispel the tension that hung in the air like an oppressive mist. The night before had been restless for both Samuel and Veyra. Their conversation stretched late into the darkness as they discussed potential threats and strategies moving forward. Yet neither anticipated what dawn would bring. As villagers began to stir, a sudden commotion erupted from beyond the village outskirts. A distant roar of engines and clanking metal heralded an incoming force unlike anything seen before in these remote lands. The ground rumbled with the approach of heavy footfalls and machinery. It was unmistakable, the arrival of hostile Keth'Shaan warriors. Samuel stood beside Veyra, his eyes scanning the horizon for signs of what approached while she braced herself against a growing sense of dread. She knew this force well. Warlord Keth'Shaan's army merciless in their pursuit and ruthless in battle tactics, designed to crush any resistance without hesitation. Warlord Keth'Shaan will not take kindly to your survival, Veyra growled softly, her golden eyes narrowing with a mix of worry and anger. He views our debt as an insult to his authority. He can't just storm into the village like this, Samuel murmured back, concern threading through every word. Veyra turned sharply towards him, a fierce intensity in her gaze. This is Keth'Shaan's way. He believes might equals right. Samuel nodded grimly, already calculating how to best protect those around him without compromising his principles or the fragile trust that had begun to form between them and their alien visitors. The first of Warlord Keth'Shaan's forces came into view, a line of menacing tanks and hovercraft advancing relentlessly towards Samuel's village. Their metallic exteriors glinted ominously under the morning sun, casting long shadows over the fields they marched across with cold efficiency. Behind this initial wave followed a regiment of heavily armored soldiers marching in disciplined formation. Veyra tensed as her own contingent prepared to face off against their rivals, weapons at the ready but wary of conflict that would endanger innocent lives on all sides. Keth'Shaan seeks my surrender, Veyra explained to Samuel quietly. He believes by capturing me, he can nullify our debt and reclaim his honor. Samuel frowned deeply, shaking his head resolutely. We won not by might but compassion. There must be another way. As the enemy drew closer, a collective whisper of fear echoed through the villagers who had gathered to witness this unprecedented scene. Children clutched tightly onto their mothers' skirts, while elderly men and women exchanged worried glances. Listen, Samuel called out calmly yet firmly as he stepped forward towards where Veyra stood at his side. He raised both hands in a gesture of peace, though the ground trembled with the rumble of war machines inches away from them now. These people are under my care, he announced boldly to any who would listen. Veyra translated Samuel's words accurately, but solemnly for her warriors gathered behind them. They roared and charged forward in response, united by both duty towards their commander as well as an unspoken respect stemming directly from the act of kindness that had brought about such unprecedented circumstances. Samuel watched helplessly as his village became a battleground between two alien factions, all because he had offered water to someone in need. The sight was surreal and deeply troubling, a stark reminder of just how far-reaching one compassionate gesture could extend across galaxies beyond any human comprehension or control. The clash began almost immediately. Shouts turned into roars, metallic impacts reverberated through the air as weapons clashed violently, amidst clouds of smoke and dust kicked up by battle. Alien warriors from both sides engaged each other with unparalleled ferocity, but there was an underlying disparity in their motivations. Keth'Shaan's forces fought out of a sense of duty to their warlord's vision. Veyra's contingent did so for the man who had saved her life. Despite being vastly outnumbered and equipped with inferior weaponry compared to Warlord Keth'Shaan's forces, Veyra's warriors stood firm, each one seemingly willing to die rather than let Samuel or his village fall under enemy control. Their sacrifice was as noble as it was heartbreaking. Many fell within moments of engaging the opposition, their last breaths taken in defense, not just for their commander, but also for the stranger who had shown them humanity. Samuel's heart clenched painfully with each passing moment, every fallen warrior a testament to bonds formed through kindness rather than fear or aggression. He stood there rooted amidst chaos and carnage, feeling utterly helpless against forces far beyond his control, yet still compelled by an unyielding sense of responsibility towards those around him. Veyra's eyes blazed fiercely as she watched her people laying down their lives for a debt they owed to someone who had offered nothing more than water in exchange for survival. She felt torn between honoring that sacred bond and the pragmatic understanding that such sacrifice could not be justified when faced with overwhelming odds and an enemy driven by ruthlessness alone. As battle raged on, it became clear no victor would emerge quickly, if at all, without significant casualties amongst both sides, due primarily to Veyra's warriors' unwavering loyalty towards their debt, loyalty which was costing them dearly in the face of relentless attacks from Keth'Shaan's superior numbers and weaponry. Samuel approached one such fallen warrior, feeling a profound sense of sorrow mixed with admiration. The young Keth'Shaan looked up at him with dull eyes, a mixture of gratitude for being remembered despite her sacrifice and longing to have died protecting someone she truly knew rather than honoring a distant debt born out of compassion offered on behalf of another. "Thank you," Samuel whispered, feeling both the weight of this responsibility and profound respect towards those who had honored it so deeply. "We will find a way forward." With renewed determination etched onto his face, Samuel turned back towards Veyra amidst continuing battle cries, knowing full well that resolving such interstellar disputes would take more than just bravery from her warriors alone, but also understanding between vastly different cultures bound by one unexpected act. Veyra nodded sharply once more before returning to strategize with remaining members of her contingent. Despite their losses, there was a fierce resolve shining in those golden eyes, a determination not merely for victory over enemies or reclaiming honor lost, but ensuring that the bonds forged here held stronger than any weapon ever could. The day stretched on amidst ongoing battle, each moment more tense and critical as Keth'Shaan's forces pushed forward relentlessly. Yet even amid chaos, there persisted a quiet sense of hope stirred by Samuel's steadfast resolve and Veyra's unwavering honor towards both him and her own people, a testament to how far one act could resonate across galaxies and bridge gaps thought insurmountable between distant worlds. Samuel looked around once more at all those gathered, both human villagers huddled close together in fear, while Keth'Shaan warriors fought tirelessly on their behalf. He felt a profound sense of awe towards these extraordinary beings whose very existence now intersected so intimately with his own humble life and values despite such vast differences between them. "We need to talk," he said finally, after some moments reflecting upon the day's events, glancing over at Veyra, who nodded silently back in agreement. "There must be a way out of this that honors our debt without leading us all towards ruin." And so began their next phase, seeking ways through diplomatic means rather than brute force to resolve conflicts arising from distant galactic wars while ensuring safety for those caught between them. And the sun crept over the horizon, casting a pale golden light across the battlefield littered with debris and bodies. Despite the initial devastation wrought by Keth'Shaan's superior forces, Veyra's warriors had held fast, their unwavering resolve fueled not only by duty but by an unbreakable bond forged through Samuel Okonkwo's simple act of kindness. By noon, it was clear that neither side could continue the battle with any hope of a decisive victory. Keth'Shaan's relentless assault wore down Veyra's remaining warriors to critical levels, each attack pushing them closer to annihilation. The human village now lay in ruins, but amidst the chaos and destruction, there emerged an unexpected moment of clarity. "Veyra Keth'Shaan," the officer called out, her voice strained with exhaustion and concern. "We need orders." Looking around at her battered warriorsmen, still holding their ground despite grievous injuries, Commander Veyra made a decision that would define the outcome of this conflict. Once more fall back to defensive positions, she ordered through gritted teeth. "Regroup. Tend to our wounded." The order was met with immediate compliance. Warriors moved swiftly and silently towards prepared defenses, their movements now calculated rather than frantic, as they assessed both new strategies for survival and means by which Veyra's sacred debt might be honored without sacrificing everything. As this regrouping began in earnest on the battlefield, Samuel Okonkwo found himself tending to a stream of injured warriors from both sides. Despite the chaos, his clinic had become something of a sanctuary. Wounded soldiers of all kinds were brought here by Veyra's order for proper medical attention regardless of which side they fought for. "Doctor," one young soldier called out through labored breaths as Samuel approached him with bandages and medicines prepared in advance. "You should know." Samuel knelt beside the man, his expression softening even as he assessed severe wounds from multiple impacts. "What is it?" he asked gently. The Keth'Shaan soldier's eyes flickered towards where Veyra stood, observing the scene with a mix of pride and sorrow visible in her sharp golden gaze. "Our commander honors your life debt," the soldier managed to say through gritted teeth, his voice barely above a whisper. "She says she will not stop until you are safe." A deep sense of respect washed over Samuel as he realized how far Veyra had come since their initial meeting. She was no longer just an alien warrior bound by ancient traditions. She embodied the very essence of honor and loyalty her clan stood for, and now sought to ensure his safety at all costs. "Thank you," Samuel replied, placing a reassuring hand on the soldier's shoulder before turning back towards Veyra with renewed determination in every step. He knew that no matter what came next, he had an ally far greater than any human army ever could be. Meanwhile, Keth'Shaan's forces saw this shift as their final opportunity to press home victory decisively. Their commander ordered a full-scale assault aimed directly at the heart of Veyra's remaining defenses, and with it, Samuel and his clinic, which now stood front and center in all plans moving forward. With every second ticking away towards disaster, Veyra took action. Once more fall back to secondary positions, she barked out. "Engage enemy." only if absolutely necessary. Her warriors understood the gravity of her decision. Instead of direct confrontation, they began setting up a series of traps and defensive structures designed to hinder Keth'Shaan's advance, while also giving Veyra time to regroup and strategize without further loss. As tensions peaked during this tactical maneuvering, another critical moment emerged as Samuel encountered yet another casualty, a human villager shot down in the crossfire. His heart heavy but resolute, he moved swiftly over to assess injuries. "Hold on," he whispered firmly, his hands already beginning work patching up wounds with practiced ease. Just then, a Keth'Shaan soldier who had been fighting alongside him suddenly collapsed next to the injured human villager. Realizing what needed doing, without hesitation Samuel switched focus between caring for both victims simultaneously. "Stay calm," he instructed one, while reaching into his medical kit with careful precision to treat another's critical wounds. Veyra watched this scene unfold from a short distance away, her heart swelling unexpectedly as she observed Samuel's unwavering commitment to healing and aid regardless of whom stood in front of him. It was more than just duty or obligation. There was something profoundly genuine about his actions that cut through all barriers between them, species, culture, even life itself. "You treat those who tried to kill you," Veyra commented quietly from behind Samuel as she approached closer to observe first and how this human doctor managed such compassion in face of adversity. He did not look up at her approach, instead focusing intently on the task at hand. "They are wounded," he said simply, his voice steady despite fatigue etched into every muscle and movement after countless hours treating injuries brought about by battle. "That is enough." Veyra's heart clenched in that moment, a realization dawning upon her more powerfully than ever before. Samuel truly could not distinguish between who deserved help or sympathy, because for him, offering it simply was what needed doing. She stepped closer to look into his face as he worked, hands moving with surgical precision, even under harsh battlefield conditions. "You give us hope," she murmured softly, her voice tinged with profound gratitude and admiration mixed together in a unique blend of emotions rarely seen among Keth'Shaan warriors outside their most intimate circles. Samuel paused briefly before continuing his work without missing a beat. "Hope isn't about who deserves it," he replied quietly, as if speaking only to himself, but somehow understanding exactly what Veyra meant by such words. "It's just being here." The simplicity of those words held more weight than any grandiloquent speech ever could convey. Hope in this moment wasn't something abstract or distant, it was tangible presence in every bandage applied, every drop of blood staunched back to keep a fellow being alive. As night fell upon the battlefield, and Keth'Shaan's forces began pulling back after exhausting their most aggressive attacks, realizing that continued assault would only lead them deeper into territory they could not hope to control any longer, turning tide became clear. Veyra's warriors had held firm against overwhelming odds, thanks in part to strategies honed during this retreat, but also because something intangible yet unmistakable now powered each of their actions, the sacred life that Samuel Okonkwo had unwittingly created. In quiet moments, under cover of darkness, Veyra took time with Samuel away from urgent medical needs to discuss next steps and ensure that even as fighting subsided into tense negotiations between various forces involved here on Earth, her clan's debt would still be honored properly through diplomatic means rather than further combat. "We will find a way," she promised him earnestly. "During one such conversation, a path forward where both your village remains safe and our honor intact." Samuel nodded thoughtfully, At these words, "And what of you?" he asked gently. Concern etched onto his face, though Veyra saw no room for doubt in her own resolve. "We have sworn to protect what we hold dear," she replied firmly. "Your life has become precious to us, no, not just because of debt, but because you embody something essential missing amongst our kind here." Her sharp golden eyes softened momentarily, reflecting a rare glimpse into depths often hidden behind stern warrior facades. Samuel had shown them all that compassion and healing could transcend even most ancient bonds, a principle far more powerful than any weapon ever forged. As negotiations progressed through the night towards tentative agreements about ceasefire conditions, peacekeepers from off-world arrived to mediate discussions, ensuring Keth'Shaan's forces withdrew safely back beyond Earth's atmosphere, while Veyra's warriors were allowed to remain and honor their life debt peacefully, under close supervision. This delicate balance required constant vigilance, but also marked significant progress toward resolving larger interstellar disputes without further bloodshed. Through it all, Samuel remained steadfast as ever, tending wounded from both sides with equal care, until finally the last injured soldier left his clinic in better condition than when they arrived. His hands were steady still. There was no end to where this sense of duty would take him as long as someone needed help and healing. For Veyra, watching such steadfast commitment inspired renewed determination. She had once viewed her life debt as an insurmountable burden, but now saw in Samuel something greater, a bridge between worlds bound by common humanity despite vast cultural divides. The path forward wasn't about simply honoring debts. It was about understanding and respecting each other's values deeply enough to forge connections stronger than any weapon ever could. Together, they stood ready for what came next, armed not just with weapons, but also hope born from one act of kindness that had reverberated across galaxies far beyond either might have imagined possible in their earliest meeting. The morning after the ceasefires were announced, a new dawn greeted Samuel and Veyra as they stood together overlooking the village that had been their sanctuary for far too long. Behind them loomed the towering shapes of immense spacecraft Keth'Shaan vessels, now orbiting Earth in peace, their hulls gleaming under the sunlight like polished obsidian against an ocean blue sky. Commander Veyra Keth'Shaan stood tall and regal beside him, her deep crimson skin a stark contrast to Samuel's dark complexion. Her golden eyes glowed with intensity as she scanned the horizon where her fleet waited silently in orbit, the testament to power beyond human comprehension. She turned towards him then, an unreadable expression crossing her face. "We have secured permission for our ships to land," Veyra began solemnly, her voice carrying a weight of responsibility and honor that made Samuel feel small yet honored by association. "My people will not forget what you did." Samuel nodded respectfully but didn't respond immediately. His thoughts were swirling around the implications. What would happen now? What could they possibly do with such an influx of alien presence here on Earth? "Can I see them?" he asked finally, his voice steady despite the enormity of it all. Veyra's lips curved into a rare smile. "Of course," she said simply before turning and leading him toward the makeshift landing site that had been hastily prepared near Samuel's clinic for these extraordinary visitors from another world. As they approached the towering bulk of one particular ship, its side door hissed open to reveal the inner sanctum of Keth'Shaan technology, gleaming metallic surfaces reflecting their figures back in mirrored precision. Veyra stepped inside gracefully, followed by Samuel, who paused briefly to take it all in. Strange controls and holographic displays that seemed both alien yet curiously familiar somehow. "Commander," greeted a voice from within the ship as they entered, crisp and authoritative. A figure approached them, another Keth'Shaan warrior, but unlike Veyra, this one was dressed not for battle or formal duties, instead wearing attire far more casual by their standard, plain clothing that showed no scars of combat. Kara greeted Veyra warmly with a nod to the newcomer, who bowed respectfully before turning her attention back towards Samuel. "This is Dr. Okonkwo," she explained briefly but clearly, in command of introducing him properly, as though he was more than just another Earth inhabitant now. "And this?" Kara asked, gesturing broadly around them. "This is where we begin repaying our debt." Kara's golden eyes widened slightly before narrowing, thoughtfulish, seemed to sense the magnitude behind those simple words. "You understand what that entails?" she said, carefully. "Yes," Veyra replied without hesitation. "We will do more than simply honor a debt. Kara forge ties between worlds where healing and compassion can thrive." Samuel watched them with growing fascination as Veyra outlined plans for diplomatic exchanges, but also the practicalities, medical aid to humanity based on Samuel's model clinic resources, and technology far beyond anything he could have imagined, even in his wildest dreams. And through it all, a palpable sense of connection seemed to grow between these warrior women and him, an understanding born from shared purpose rather than any grand strategy. Veyra herself had changed subtly since their initial meeting, a rigid demeanor now softened by an openness Samuel recognized as akin to the gentle curiosity with which she had studied Earth's customs. There was something more, to a kind of reverence for his simple act that went deeper than mere obligation. "Samuel," Veyra said, turning back towards him after speaking briefly in hushed tones with Kara, who bowed respectfully and left them alone once more amidst this foreign world within her ship. "There is much we can offer, no wealth, technology beyond your imagination, a place among my people even." Her voice was a low rumble, but held genuine sincerity that made Samuel pause thoughtfully. "I've seen what you're capable of," Veyra continued softly, as though reading his mind. She stepped closer, lowering her gaze to meet his eyes directly. Those sharp golden irises bore witness now not just to duty or debt, but something far more profound. "You have shown us what true leadership looks like." Samuel felt the weight of those words deeply. It was an honor beyond anything he could ever imagine receiving, and yet at its core it struck him as a recognition rather than mere praise. "Can you help me build a real hospital here?" he asked finally, voice steady, but with underlying hopefulness. "One that can treat everyone who needs it." Veyra's lips quirked into an almost imperceptible smile of disbelief mingled with admiration before she nodded solemnly in agreement. "You could have anything," she murmured quietly, more to herself than him now. Yet when their eyes met again, there was clear resolve shining back at Samuel. "It wasn't just about repaying a debt anymore, but fostering something truly unique across galaxies." "Then let's make it happen." The next day saw an incredible flurry of activity as Keth'Shaan engineers and medical staff worked alongside local communities to construct what would become the most advanced medical facility on all of Africa, beacon not only for healing but also understanding between worlds. Funding poured in from unexpected sources, while Samuel guided every step with steady hands, both literal and metaphorical, ensuring that his vision remained focused squarely on helping others rather than capitalizing on such unprecedented resources. Even as this monumental task progressed, Veyra stayed closely beside him, ensuring smooth coordination at all levels, but also because, well, she refused to deny the growing sense of purpose found in their partnership. When alone together, under starlit skies, or even amidst bustling construction sites, buzzing with both human and alien energies alike. There was an unspoken bond that grew stronger still. One night, as they sat overlooking the rising framework destined soon enough for completion, surrounded by cranes reaching skyward, like silent sentinels guarding progress, they shared a quiet moment. "Why did you help me?" Veyra suddenly asked him, her voice softer now than ever before. "That first day." "Why?" Samuel turned to look at her thin, gentle brown eyes staring back reflected none of the intensity she might expect, but rather simple truth that seemed far deeper by contrast against this backdrop of alien engineering. "I took an oath," he replied simply, with a smile tugging corners upwards slightly despite everything else around them demanding awe or wonderment. "First, do no harm." Veyra's gaze softened further, if possible. There was understanding in her eyes now, but also something more akin to recognition, an acknowledgement of shared values stretching across interstellar distances and divergent species. "We took an oath too," she murmured quietly, reaching out slowly to take his hand, then squeezing gently, as though offering reassurance, or perhaps seeking it equally. "Protect those who give life." A moment passed where neither needed words any more, only mutual respect born from acts of compassion, transcending any single person's actions into something greater still. "And here we are," Samuel said quietly, after a while, looking back out over what would become their shared legacy, rising steadily among them under starlit skies. "Not so different maybe." Veyra nodded thoughtfully, but with renewed determination, and her eyes squeezed his hand firmly once more before releasing it to stand upright herself and look down at him, now standing beside her equally resolute. "Perhaps not," she agreed softly yet fully committed, then turned back towards the distant construction site, where lights still flickered late into night under their watchful gaze. "There's work to be done." She began walking purposefully away, leaving Samuel with one last glance after her retreating form before turning to and joining in what truly had become a shared mission, bridging worlds, not just through debt repayment, but mutual respect born from acts of kindness transcending boundaries of both space and culture alike. In the end, as promised by Veyra's people arrived first with tools, then staying behind to join Samuel amidst this new beginning. Together, they forged connections stronger than any weapon ever could, a testament indeed that in moments when humanity met its most extreme challenges, sometimes it took reaching out across galaxies rather than just national boundaries to find common ground once more.